Oh, hello! Today I am being your host, Joseph Stalin here, and the word of the day is fuck the French people, especially that prick Napoleon. Fuck
Please
that
tell
guy.
me that's your intro right now.
This is the actual
That's the intro.
and not,
That's all
Yes.
you get.
intro.
Today, this is
Why?
the generic Lucky Shoe podcast. Um,
I didn't consent to
and
this.
that's about all we got. Um,
Hey, you did your best. I'm proud of you.
That was
uh,
beautiful.
I'm MC Lucky. Marcus Slutka for
It's like-
if you care, but my handle is MC Lucky, and we can go around the table. Let's just go down the Discord. Astro Shui, what's up with you?
Well, I am the shoe.
What do you do? The shoe.
What do I do?
Yeah,
Shoe stuff.
shoe
Oh,
stuff.
you know, shoe stuff.
Walking around.
Yep. Just exist.
Cool. Alright. Liquid Snake 9870.
Hello, I'm Liquid Snake, human named John.
In the physical realm, they call
Yes.
me John.
Outside of the virtual realm.
You rarely go out.
I've never
Scary.
left my house ever.
Alright.
Yeah, he didn't go to college.
Syndra is Bay.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I was muted for a second. What did I miss?
Nothing much.
And we're just trying to do our intros.
Oh, okay, cool.
Syndra is Bay.
Okay, I'm Raj. I don't know. I do math stuff and talk, I suppose.
Rajesh.
You talk on a podcast?
Yeah, I talk on a podcast.
Goddamn.
And you also get suddenly quieter. But that's alright, I'll compensate. Alright,
Nah, it's fine. You know,
the generic T girl. What is up with
Hello. Nothing. I'm bored. And I want to burn something.
you? What's your freaking name?
May. Hello. Hi.
Okay. Now that we got...
this is our intro.
Yeah. No, we have 3 intros going on right now. So what's been going on in the world? I guess that's a good launching point. It's generally how I think we can start these.
I don't know. What about the world? Narrow down your questions, man.
I don't know. What's the news? I guess. Fuck.
Usually Matt
Uh,
starts us off with something.
Matt, you're educated.
Bail us out.
Let's see if I remember. Oh, I remember. Trump tweeted again.
That's not
Cover
news.
May.
That's basically been what the media's been talking about at least over the weekend.
So
What are you
nothing has
talking about,
happened.
Raj? What else is the news
The
for the past 4 years?
That was a news that he's tweeting.
What was he
He's
specifically
always
tweeting
tweeting.
about, though?
Was-
Potentially moving the election day due to COVID.
Oh, yeah. I
Oh,
remember
yeah,
that
that was.
He was like, we should just, like, not have the election. What do we do?
Yeah, you know, fine.
Oh yeah, the right wing is loving that. Something about like being against mail, like voting by mail.
I feel like he's set up for that. Yeah, like he's just been talking all like crapping on absentee ballots. Is that that's what they'd be called, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Suppose,
more or less. Called mail-in ballots, but that's basically what they are.
And, like he's
absentee.
been crapping on that for like probably more than like a month and a half now, hasn't he?
No, what's wrong with it? Just voting by mail.
I mean, he says something like, you know, it's not as secure. People are gonna rig the election. I'm sure those are some of the things.
Yeah, it's the same like voter
Yeah.
fraud narrative that they usually use.
Is it usually used by the right wing, or do everybody
mean-
uses it?
Depends.
In the U.S., as
It's
of now, the
usually-
voter fraud narrative is mostly a Republican
Right-wing.
standpoint.
Yeah.
No.
But I mean, like, I'm sure the Democrats have used it in the past at some point.
Hmm.
I don't
Does that-
recall that they have,
Minutes.
but
I feel like there's
Does that have any validity to it? I mean, what is their like premises on that?
So
Their
they say that-
argument. Oh, go for it, Rush.
oh, I was gonna, like, they've done apparently they've done some studies. I don't know how good the studies were because I didn't really look into it, but like they've looked into some of the voter fraud and it's not nearly as prevalent as what they say it is. So
Mm.
it you know, Like it's almost negligible voter fraud,
If I
but with
remember
the
Ah.
mail,
correctly, it's like
What
less than
about
0%,
what about relative to
like
in-person
0.1%
voting?
or something like that.
yeah,
That's the key metric. What's the voter fraud of mail-in relative to in-person?
I don't think they've ever done a real study on mail-in voters, but I could see that it's probably a little bit more because all it takes is one time for it to be fraudulent, right?
Didn't one
So
state like vote online for the Democratic primaries?
Iowa did something
And
like
it
that,
was
didn't
like
they, John?
super suspect because
Oh, it was bad.
the guy, Booty Boy Buttigieg, like was
Mhm.
part of the like put money into the company or something. He was like he had financial stakes in the company that was doing the vote, like the
It
ballot.
was just I don't
And
know
then
about
he
that
also like came
honestly,
out
but
on top in that.
He also
It was
announced his
weird.
victory prior to like the quote unquote official counting.
Yeah.
but then again, like the official counting was an absolute nightmare. Like everything just fell apart. Like
But
everything.
like the argument for Republicans is kind of like they argue that without people needing identification or something before they vote, they could easily like go on a bus and just go from like county to county and then keep voting. Like the argument is that
Mm.
No.
there's no way people aren't doing that. It's just so straightforward and so easy to do it. But like yeah, I think I remember like Raj was saying, the amount of people that actually get away with it or do it is extremely negligible to how the actual count turns out, or let alone just how trash our voting system and machines are in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The state like
Well,
Washington.
Trump has a right to be scared about that because he's not going to win the popular vote.
I mean, who cares about popular vote? You win what gets
Yeah,
you elected, so I mean, who
electoral
cares?
college.
Yeah, he's just gotta get the brownie points. He doesn't need the
Yep.
popular vote.
Yeah.
What
It's
is it?
the votes that
At,
count.
look at Washington State. They already mailed. I think they already mailed by vote completely, or vote by mail completely. In a few other states.
like mail-in votes has been a thing for this probably goes without saying for an extremely long time, considering they'd have to run elections like throughout the entire country, which means that like before the internet and stuff like that, that was like the only real way some people could actually vote.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm choking on my popcorn.
Fair.
That was great. But
Did I get
I
my
don't
words
know.
out?
Yeah, you did. I
Nice.
just don't know how like secure it is with mail. Like, if someone wants to influence it, like I'm thinking like a country, not like within the population, like an actual country trying to influence it. Maybe they could do something like that.
Because
But
that'd be the only power that'd be capable of actually manipulating it in a way to like railroad an election.
yeah, so
Like
Russian
I'm
person to
thinking
bot.
more
person
like
basis, it just can't be enough.
yeah, so I'm thinking more that route, and then that's possible, and all you need is one time for them to do it and get away with it. It's like, oh, we ran this study, it didn't work here. Okay, it didn't run it here, it didn't do it here, it didn't do it here. All it needs is the one time to really make an effect. So they've got some justification, but the way they're going about it is like,
Well, and is it
the
cause
arguments that
to
they're
delay
making.
the election? I guess is the real question.
Yeah.
Which is
I think
Yeah.
no, only Congress can change it though. Only Congress has the power.
got the power.
Only Congress can change what?
Only
Uh,
only Congress can set the election date,
Oh, I see.
not the
which
president.
is Democratic still, correct?
Partial.
Yeah.
Democrats control the House and Republicans control the Senate.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
Does
right.
it
My
need
bad.
to go through the House first?
Yeah, they would have to pass a new legislation, new law.
You have to go
saying
through
the
both
election day
bodies. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so yeah, it's not happening.
He's more
It's
so
almost
trying to
certain.
like create this narrative, at least as of now, that like the election can be like fraudulent and messy, and so then if he loses, he can run with that argument. Like he set up with the whole mail and stuff for quite a while, saying that it's it's not reliable. It's so easy to screw up. Like they sent in mail-in ballots to the dead guy. Like, come on, look at that. It's so easy to mess it up. And now he's gonna say we gotta delay the election. These mail-in ballots are not reliable. So it's like he's like narrative building basically.
To be fair, he's got a little bit of a point with our government being, a little bit incompetent when it comes to their voting things. If Iowa was any indication, so
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
yeah,
that
all he
was
has to do is just
Iowa
say,
was-
"Look at
that was-
Iowa."
That was different.
Clusterfuck.
That was different from just mail-in ballot, though. They were using an
No,
app.
but it's like it's the format, right? Like, oh look, the government screwed up a voting thing that's super important that they should have had reeled down.
And
They
it
screwed it
wasn't
up.
actually the government. Technically, it was.
I mean,
the
it was the
DNC.
Iowa government. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
It was the
That's-
It wasn't even the Iowa government. It was no branch of government. It was the DNC.
Yeah,
which is-
my
Yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta remember the
okay.
DNC is
that's
filled with
technicalities,
morons.
I guess.
Yeah, on those technicalities, yeah. But then like in the big picture, they won't see those technicalities. They'll just say, yeah, see, there's another good example. They'll be like that, like what Raj was saying.
I mean, it's definitely a workable narrative. I'm just not sure if it's a logically sound narrative.
it's
Oh,
got
I feel
some
you there,
merits.
but yeah.
It's got some merits.
Yeah, in terms of
It's
actually,
about
like,
as much as I'm willing to give it.
I think it has just enough merits to convince people,
Mhm.
which is all that.
Which
you
is all it
really
needs.
Exactly. It crossed the goalpost.
It'll probably
Yes.
do what Trump wants it to do.
It doesn't matter if it bounced off the field goal thing as long as it got in it. Honestly, outside of that, I'm trying to think.
TikTok being banned.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
happening too.
I mean,
Oh,
You know, on one hand, thank God. On the other hand, government censorship is a pretty slippery slope,
government
I bet
and
you can
that
actually-
doesn't sound good.
in fairness, TikTok is owned
By China,
by China.
by a Chinese
Yeah.
corporation that is
So-
subservient to China.
At least it's not government censorship of an American company or citizen.
Yeah, because isn't the whole drama of
see.
TikTok is that they're like eliminating videos that they seem as what like not appropriate or something like that.
Well, and it's
Stop.
also like spyware
Yeah, that's a big thing.
that
Oh,
people
yeah.
Like
invite into their lives willingly. You know,
Yeah.
China's notorious for that. They like if you're a citizen of them, you have an app, which is like it's spyware essentially.
Oh
for
yeah,
the Chinese
China's something
government.
else.
So like
I
that
mean-
is a very well-founded concern. That is very
What-
well-founded that China is using it to spy.
I mean, what are they using it for exactly? I mean, what
Just
can they
information
gather?
Anything.
Your name, how you look, what city you're in. Like that's already a lot. Like people are in China. Like if you go to Tiananmen Square, this used to be a thing. If you went to Tiananmen Square, there'd be vendors who would allow you to like take a picture in front of Tiananmen Square and then they'll send it to you. They said they would mail it to you. And what they would get is your picture, your name, and then your address, and that vendor would actually be a Chinese government worker. So they were just
Oh,
casing,
jeez.
And that
like they were
doesn't
just
even
casing
include
tourists.
yeah, that doesn't even include all of the other examples that they use on their own citizens, with Xinjiang
Yeah.
province being the most extreme of what they do when it
Mm.
comes to government surveillance.
Okay, but how does it affect us?
imagine
like-
all of the information that you put on a normal social media app, and
Yeah.
then collecting that and storing it.
Well, here's another thing too. Like if you get the app on your phone, there could be like a back door for all of your information to go. So imagine you typing in your like social security number. Well, China just saw you type in a number. Whether or not they can find out it's your social security, they may be able to. But they can at least get like, there's a lot you can do with technology where they can just steal data. Oh, you have a folder of this on your phone? Well, maybe they can access and open it.
I mean, I'm not even sure.
Oh,
like,
I see.
Yeah, because like them
even not going even
putting-
that seriously, because I'm not so sure about how easy
I don't know the
that is
validity of that.
through an app
Yeah, I
store
don't know.
that is checked by Google or Apple supposedly. Like maybe that would be hard to do.
Yeah,
But
maybe,
even
but
just-
it's possible.
Imagine giving a country who's not friendly with your country that you're living in access to your position at all times. Because
Oh,
like it's every app asks you, "Oh, do you want to give us your
Enable
location.
location.
Do you want to
Yeah.
share your contacts information? Do you want to share your Facebook information? Do you want to share? It's literally all of the information you have on the internet, conveniently packaged for them for every American who downloads that app.
Like information gathering in general is just already like such an insidious thing because it can spread so quickly into venues like on your phone that you may not even think about,
Well,
and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden they have a
like
lot of information actually.
for example, like Facebook, and this is what I was bringing up. Like Facebook, if you have it, they'll like no fitness apps. That's what it is. Fitness apps will be able like you enter in your like your data like for like female fitness apps. They'll add in like when you're having your period, when you're this, when you're this. That data is actually sold to like Facebook and stuff. They have your data. They know when you're like, oh, she's on her period. She's using this thing. She's working out here, so they can tailor ads to you.
yeah.
One of the big revenue things
Well-
for like social media and stuff is selling data, selling your data that
Raw
you've willingly
information.
posted.
They can straight up just look at what you looked up on Google too.
Like
For
the
the
moment
sole
I realized,
purpose of selling me something.
Or among other things, and selling your information to competitors, whoever they may be, governments or whoever. So, like, yeah,
like
your fitness, your fitness apps are absolutely selling all your data to someone else. Like
I
they're
see.
known for that, absolutely. So if you put like when you're having your period down on an app, someone knows, someone else has seen it and knows exactly what's happening.
I
And to be
saw a
honest-
story
Huh.
from somebody at like Target or Google or whatever. I think a father got a bunch of ads saying get baby diapers here or something like that. He got really pissed off and went to Target and kind of gave him a few words. And then he later found out that his 16-year-old daughter was pregnant, and how like Google knew that she was pregnant was because she was searching for like pregnancy test or some shit like that, and the algorithm figured, oh, she must be pregnant. So here's some I'll send you some advertisements on baby diapers and shit.
yeah,
like
like my Google
Oh,
News I know is perfectly documented for what I do because I get these Google News notifications on my phone nowadays, and this is the stuff I get. I get K-pop news now. I get video game news, and
And-
that's it.
In fairness, some people might be saying to themselves, "Oh, well, if it's just going to show me a bunch of stuff that I really like to see, then maybe I should get TikTok and they'll tailor a bunch of stuff for me."
It's the stuff you don't see
but-
that's the scary part.
Mhm.
That's
just
the
to,
scary part.
throw on a super big tinfoil hat. Imagine what else they could do with it if they can access pretty much everyone below a certain age in America. I mean, pretty much everyone, and they find the people that they think would be sympathetic to the Chinese government and start giving them propaganda to, I don't know, bring forth an ethos in America that is pro-China and manipulates the culture, you know,
And if you think that sounds weird,
widespread cultural manipulation, and not only do they have a way for you to export your data to them, they have then also an easy way for them to import their data into your brain, because
and
they
if
have
you
a social
think this
You
sounds
know what?
they have a
You-
social
you know
media
what?
app that you directly use consistently, and that's just so they have a gateway straight into your brain, and they can send you messaging through TikTok. After
just wanna
researching
say, like-
the best way to manipulate you.
I want to say that does not sound like tinfoil hat shit to me. That just sounds like reality.
no. If you think of anything that Marcus is saying is weird, just look at Taiwan and what's
It
happening
doesn't
there.
sound weird to me.
No, that's what happened in Taiwan, like probably exclusively.
Sorry, when you say Taiwan, do you mean Hong Kong?
No, I actually meant Taiwan with like how they were voting to go back to China, and there's like a huge pro
Oh, yeah.
China movement going on, where it's like the old guard versus the new guard now,
Yeah.
and that whole dichotomy, and I'm sure that influences.
Oh, that
I think
I'm sure
just-
social media is there.
everyone
and all
here
that
direct
stuff.
stuff all
knows-
the way. Yeah.
everyone here knows how much social media like affects people's minds and how
Yeah.
susceptible people are to messaging over social media.
Look at the
Mhm.
2016 election with Russian interference. one of the primary mechanisms the Russians interfered was throwing out disinformation throughout social media, and that spread like wildfire,
Yeah, and we're just like
and that potentially directly affected the 2016 election. I
likely
haven't seen
directly
any
affected
research.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
certainly.
And then
directly
now
affected
those types of narratives that have kind of been that were probably or most likely developed by foreign states to try to manipulate the election or people's mindsets are now, or at least for a long time, were like a minority type of information source, like stuff like Breitbart. But then now it's like normal.
And people ask
Or
what the application of psychology and sociology are. Right there. Perfect.
There you go.
I mean,
And
but
then,
like if you're a government
corporations.
force and you know this stuff and you know psychology, why would you ever tell your populace? Because then they'll they'll understand when you're using it. You never tell them what you want them to think that psychology is useless,
Mm-hmm.
because then they're not prone to thinking about it or looking into it.
or at least like downplay, like do it in a really casual manner. How like we just throw out words like psychopath and stuff, and just
Oh
make it
yeah,
super
without the
baseline.
definition.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like, yeah, he's a
it's the exact same
psychopath. Do
thing
you
of
even know
history.
what it means?
I think
This person
It's-
bad.
in my brain I
That's
was
what
like
it means.
gave China kind of a pass because to me they were like a meme almost, and like I didn't even know until just like this month that TikTok was owned by a card-carrying communist official.
Yep.
Like I didn't know that until this month, and I didn't know that they had concentration camps set up until like earlier this year. And it's like,
Oh, with the Uyghurs?
Yeah,
Is that what you? Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
and it's
Xinjiang
like,
province.
Yeah.
guys, we should stop giving them a pass, maybe. Like,
No,
I'm
but
just
it's
saying.
No, stop
apparently
being mean to China.
it's apparently racist to criticize China.
Yeah.
It was racist to apparently call it the Wuhan virus.
China
know.
virus.
I don't know. Maybe.
Like, maybe we should stop being apologetic for China because they're not great. I mean, you can meme all you want because memes are always good, but also maybe we should do a little bit more than just meme. Because
It's hard. The more you learn about how governments function, you realize just how much casual or extreme authoritarianism there is outside of the market examples like Saudi Arabia or North Korea. Like there's plenty.
Oh, it's just everywhere.
Yeah, there's so many extreme examples that you can actually see when you like just dig like a little bit, and then it makes you realize that like there's just so much stuff, and then it makes it so much harder to be critical of China simply because of their position in the world as of now.
and not only
And
to
then
mention our own authoritarian
yeah,
components in the U.S. alone. I mean,
exactly. Because as soon as you criticize them, they'll just come back and rightly criticize the shit that we do, because we do some
like
pretty
Jackie
stupid
Chan.
stuff. Because we're a country, right? We're gonna do some messed up stuff. Like that's the name of the game. So when we criticize them, they'll just criticize us back and say, "Oh, why are you going after us? Look at all these other countries that do it too."
yeah, and there's definitely
Wow,
authoritarian
look at you.
components to how the U.S. functions now. I mean, there always have been some, but there's definitely been a move towards more, I guess, direct executive action.
Or
With
just
less,
executive meddling, not even
yeah.
action.
And direct executive action. I mean, how many drone strikes did Obama call in his last 2 years in office?
A ton.
Yeah.
A ton. And Democrats were real cool with that then. They were real cool with him killing a lot of people then. They didn't say a word.
Yeah, and he was like, I mean, I bring up Obama because everyone called Bush authoritarian, everyone calls Trump authoritarian, but I don't hear many people calling, well, I guess I hear right-wing people calling Obama authoritarian.
It's whoever is your opposite person.
Yeah.
When it's a Democrat in office, the Democrats are really cool with authoritarianism. They're on board with that stuff. When it's the Republicans in office, the Republicans are real cool with authoritarianism, and when the other person's in office, then the other side hates authoritarianism like the plague. It's
like
whoever who's your
one of my
player.
friends for a long time was like his family's pretty strongly Republican, and like kind of like all absorbed the kind of like talking tropes
Mhm.
that the Republicans usually were on about during the Obama years. And he told me that when he started seeing the stuff that Trump was doing, and like noticing how the Republican senators and representatives that he knew and that his parents respected for what they said about Obama for like being authoritarian or like being too cowardly or weak on Russia and stuff, he saw those exact same things that Trump was doing, but those same people were supporting him, and then he realized, oh wait, this is just a
Yeah.
joke.
It is.
Doesn't
Like,
matter
they
what
don't
you do;
care.
it matters who does it
Yeah.
and which side you're
Exactly.
on.
Yeah, because you have to have a foil. If they take this, you have to be the foil. There's no other way around it because of how the system is.
So,
Otherwise,
makes you wonder. It makes you wonder how much fun it is and how worthwhile it is to participate. Too much of it's just the same junk over and over.
being a politician
Politics.
would be an interesting job.
Yeah, I mean, they age real fast. Have you seen like in and out of office, like
Oh yeah,
Obama,
the
Bush?
yeah.
I'm convinced some of that is them having to find out what actually goes into being a president and all the bullshit you have to shovel and all the crap that you don't actually get to do what you want and actually get to solve anything. You just have to
You
almost
probably
do
get
what you're told.
you probably get to pick like
And it's,
one or two pet projects that they're like, yeah, you can do those, but they
you
need to
can
be
have
vetted.
this.
They need it
You
to be
become
vetted by the real
yeah.
authority.
You become
Yeah.
part of the monster at that point. You just happen to be in a higher chair, but it's still just a giant beast of its own, basically.
You're still owned.
Say what you will about Trump, but I don't think he is in the same league. I'm sure he's still controlled, but I don't think he's in the same league just because he's so magnanimous and he's actually wealthy. So I don't know.
I mean, Raj,
Yeah,
we won't know until maybe if he wins next election or if he's out, maybe like 8 years from now when we actually know if he was on a higher chair or not, you know?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying he has a higher chance of being on it than maybe a couple of the last ones. Clinton was also another one who was just because he was so realpolitik, he may have had a higher chance of doing stuff. And he was
At
intelligent.
that point, it's a person by person,
Yeah.
kind of like the actual like state of the affairs of the Congress by the time the guy comes into office too.
Yeah. But I think it's gonna be more and more. It's just gonna be like if you're president, you're just like a puppet. You're not a puppet, but you're a showman. It's the president. It's not you driving the office. It's the office driving you.
Yeah.
You step into the cog and you're it.
You're heavily at the whims of the legislature and public opinion. Like you're not your own person. You're part of something, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like on paper that's kind of a good and bad thing, but when you add reality, it becomes a lot more messy.
Americans need to clean their rooms, bucko.
Sounds like something Poon would say.
Clean your room.
Forget cleaning your rooms. We should just burn your room.
You should buy another room and ignore the old room.
No, buy a new room. Just start from scratch and just burn the old room.
But the room we have
we
right
have a
now
homeless
is like
population,
not that
right?
bad.
Yeah,
Our
we have a
room has
homeless
some-
population.
Our room has a pretty good skeleton. We have some good bones in our room,
It's got a good value to it. There's still
Yeah,
value
but
to
it's
it.
haunted.
Oh, we're being
It's haunted though.
metaphorical. Oh.
I mean, you don't want to
It's
throw the baby out with the bathwater.
But hey, you said skeleton, and it's probably haunted. So just burn it.
Has a good structural foundation. Who knows? Do you think you're gonna build a room with as good of a structural foundation?
Amazing acceleration is clearly Marcus.
Yes.
We need to purge the entire foundation, otherwise it will stain the new foundation.
Are you?
I was actually taking that position not too long ago, but I was like, this is a bad idea. I'm gonna, I need to calm down a little bit.
Accelerationism is an extremely romantic mindset.
Burn it
Everyone
all down.
who says that, always thinks that they'll be the one surviving it too. It's like, oh, we need to burn it all down and then build it up. They think they'll be the ones building it up.
Sergei
They're probably
Serbia
gonna
is
get
funny.
killed.
There was
They're
like a
probably
really
gonna get
good scene.
Just the arrogance in it, man. I mean, Matt and I have talked about this before a couple times recently, but just the arrogance in the just tear it all down. We can do better than this. It's like,
Like
I'm sure
abolish
you
the
can.
police.
have you like read the goddamn Constitution? Like, have you read it? Have you read what the founding fathers were talking about? Like,
No.
do you know how long they spent on? Do you know how educated they were and how long they spent writing that document?
Just Thomas
Stuck in a
Jefferson in
room.
general, man. Just looking at that man's face and just saying, "No, what you wrote and all those beautiful writings you made, they're all wrong. Screw you, face."
I know better than you
Or
do.
the endless amount of lawyers and intellectuals that were in charge of a lot of the documentation, or like, let alone Benjamin Franklin, who was like the closest thing we had to a science man.
And not
Yeah.
only tear it all down, we could do better. We could do better without even thinking about it. Like, we already
Yeah.
know what we need to do
What
better.
to do?
Our human nature is just inherently good, and we got to eliminate this authoritarian state that's bringing the the good naturedness of humanity down, or some crap like that.
We're just more
I mean, it's
evolved.
the same thing with like.
We're a more evolved
It's.
species of human than existed 200 years ago. In 200
I mean,
years, we've evolved past those petty beings that wrote the Constitution. It's like,
We have
really?
ascended.
Okay.
I mean, it's like. It's the same thing with like communism. People like talk about the virtues of communism or socialism. How many of those people have actually read Marx?
Or like
'Cause
just
even-
extremely like literature heavy, and like have like they just don't even focus on the actual implementation process, or even
I
what
mean,
Marx's
Marx didn't
opinions
even.
were about implementation. Yeah,
Marx really was. He was like when I read him, he was very vague on implementation immediately. He was very good later on, but he had no idea like
he
how
opposed
to start
every
it.
communist organization that formed during his lifetime.
And if you look at like communism and what people say and like what he wrote, there's almost like there's so much distance between those two. It's you can't even say it's communism
It's
anymore.
become its own monster at this point.
It's just nothing.
Yeah.
It's
wait.
hilarious.
This whole discussion, can this discussion tie back to like abolish the police? You know, people believing they could just tear down the entire system and just, you know, everything will be okay because, you know, we won't repeat this mistake if we get rid of this institution.
Just get rid of
We
it?
will immediately. Like I don't think people are saying abolish the police. They're defunding it, right?
Some people are saying literally abolish the police, but
Well,
it's
those are the
mostly
crazy
defund the
people, right?
police.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah, those
So
are
become
the
a
those are the
crazy
catchphrase
crazy.
people.
Yeah, it's become a
Yeah.
catchphrase term for the demand of defunding being the moderate demand, I guess.
Or just
Yeah.
reform, right? They
Yeah,
just want reform.
it's entirely reform. That's the
Yeah.
focus.
Mm.
So
I'd say
yeah.
before you reform, make damn sure that you know what the problem that you're trying to get rid of is.
Which is the
Yeah.
thing that
And-
usually people can't make consensus on.
And what caused the problem that you're trying to get rid of.
Yeah, there's no consensus on either of those things.
No, I guarantee
Just
my
vague
opinions on it
things
would
like-
be different than everyone's.
Yeah, it's just vague things like, oh, racism, authoritarianism, Donald Trump. It's very vague about, you know, how they define what the problem is.
It's like Donald Trump is is the problem. Well, you've been talking about this from before he was around, so not around, but before
Yeah.
he was
Oh,
president.
we've been
So
talking about the police for decades now. Like actually, like 2 or 3 decades now.
before you
It's
start
guaranteed not Trump.
trying to reform it, be precise in your speech, and in order to do that, you need to be precise in your thought. You know,
But everything was just so winged. Like
because
when the riot started, there was no plan. It was just burn shit down and then think later.
I don't have a solution to the police reform. I think that we probably do need police reform, but I don't know what would do it necessarily, and I'm not.
I don't even know
convinced.
enough to even address any of it.
No,
Yeah.
I have some ideas, but like not like too many, and not a comprehensive amount. So
I think
Which
on
basically sums up. Sorry, go for it, Marcus.
on the face of it, the concept of breaking down the job into sub jobs makes sense because they probably do too many jobs. That makes sense to me on the face of it, at
with
least.
too little training,
Mhm.
that too, it's a big thing. But then you get into like like what I would like to do is like better like train them. Like if you're going to be part of like the police, it's almost like a military spec ops type thing. You are very well trained, highly trained. How would you even implement something like that?
I don't know. Jocko Willick will figure it out. He talked about
no,
this.
like realistically, how would you actually seriously implement something like that across the whole nation?
And would you
and
really
do it
want
without disturbing other things?
Would you really want a military force
I mean, it's not
presiding over
military.
you on a day-to-day basis, though?
It's not military.
It's more so
It's
he's talking about
absolutely not military.
professionalization of the police force. Like
Yeah.
examples like civil forfeiture, where they like use money that they took from some guy's car because they thought it was for a drug deal to buy like a jacuzzi or something. That should never freaking happen. Like that type
And it
of
happens all the
professionalization.
time.
Yeah, and then like that's probably what he means by
and like
military special
professional
forces.
etiquette.
Yeah.
Or like too, like people who are good enough at like de-escalation stuff that they don't need to carry weapons, like a gun. They wouldn't. If you're really well trained and know what you're doing and stuff, there's not a lot of situations where you really need to be reaching for your gun or using it. And if it is, something is seriously wrong.
So there's good examples
like,
in Europe of police departments that are A, not even armed, or B, don't have anything in general.
So stuff like that. People who are trained very well to be able to operate like that.
Let's just clone Jocko and his life experiences, like May was saying. Let's go.
And then I think that
we're a ways away from
cloning. What you're saying, Raj, kind of coincides with Marcus's like was a delegation of responsibilities.
Yeah, have specialists in different fields of police work.
Yeah, which would probably involve like just an expansion of civil services, which is something that people have always wanted.
I mean, you could easily do that, like surgery or like medicine. You have a general officer, but then you specialize within it, just like a medical doctor. You have your general practitioner, and he specializes from there. So that could be the police department.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't even have to be the police department. But then, of course, if it's not the police department, then you have all these concerns. Yeah, and then lobbyism comes into play dramatically.
Oh yeah. So nothing will happen essentially.
Of course, right when we think about lobbyism, it becomes much more difficult.
Nothing will happen.
Or unionization.
Or it will be a token gesture at best.
It'll be token. It almost will always be token. Whenever they promise, it's usually token, and then they wait for people to calm down, and then they talk about stuff like the looting and rioting, so that they can downplay the movement in general, and then try to just make everyone shut up.
And
I swear to God, like 1 month after the protests and everything, it's like the only real changes that were being implemented were just, like you said, token gestures, like, oh, Cleveland Brown from Family Guy is going to be played by an actual black guy now, or Aunt Jemima is going to be, removed or shit like that.
I take responsibility.
Oh yeah, oh my God.
I don't need
Aaron
a celebrity.
Aaron Paul, why would you do this to us? Why?
Hey, it would be really great. It would be great if we had some police reform.
Yeah, totally.
Would you prefer us to just come out and say that we take responsibility and then not do anything about it? No, actually, I think we'd rather have some police reform. Well, would you rather Aunt Jemima no longer be on the syrup bottle? Actually, I think we'd probably prefer having some police reform.
Would you put those two and compare and contrast them to each other? It really makes it much more apparent just how depressing it is.
It's sad because token gestures are easy to pay attention to. Like actual police reform and, looking at all the policies and proposals and whatever. That's hard, but you know what? Changing a syrup brand, changing a name of the lake, that's really easy shit to read into.
It's easy for a general audience to interpret what that means compared to police reform. And then with police reform, we need like actually educated, trained people, technocrats who understand this stuff, which is why if they come out and say, oh, we're doing this and that, it doesn't sound the same as, oh, we're getting rid of Aunt Jemima. Like it doesn't sound the same to a general audience.
The general populace in America is not actually all that educated, truthfully. We're not nearly as educated as we'd like to believe we are. Which is really sad to think and say, considering.
And that's why China gave us TikTok, the most brain dead social media app, to gather all of our data.
Have any of you guys used TikTok before? I've never touched it.
No,
Nope.
it's so
Nope.
it's so stupid. I've never used it, but I've seen stuff from
Oh,
it. I
It's
mean,
basically
everybody
hey,
has.
Snapchat
our
stories. They're
average
only videos,
Yeah,
right?
our
yeah,
Yeah.
it
average
is.
ACT
Not bad.
score has increased. Actually, we're at 20.8.
Look at us.
So nothing still. It's still bad. Like
Back when
40.
I was in back when I took it, the average was 19, which is a point above 50%. Now we're almost 3 points above 50%.
Like
Yay.
if you look at like the amount of people who are ready for college math, just going in to college from high school, it's like 40%.
Wow,
There was like a long time ago. There was a statistics like that, and I don't know how good they are, so like take it with a grain of salt. But
guys,
I do think it's believable, where it's like 40% of people leaving high school were actually competent enough in math to do it at a college level, and we're talking like the brain dead college stuff. We're not talking like calculus
as a
or
nation,
the hard stuff.
we almost got a D on the ACT. Almost got a D.
Yeah,
Nice job, team.
you know,
All
like
right.
it's really bad.
It's long, but it's not actually that hard.
It's really not. It's geometry and algebra.
I
Like
didn't
And
study the
grammar.
and it's not even.
and I'm pretty sure I got a much better score than whatever that average was you just said.
We
And
It's
I
also
not
was like a
even.
monkey in high school.
And it's not even finishing algebra. We don't even finish algebra in most of our high schools. We get halfway through algebra. We don't even finish it.
college algebra is a class at pretty much every college, right?
Yeah, it is. And people there it's gotten so bad in some cases in some schools that they literally have to expand college algebra from 1 semester to 2 semesters because people are so unknowledgeable about what the hell math is or even like have any basis in it. It's just so horrible. And California is actually one of the big like they're a big red flag on this issue. They do a lot of this stuff. So
A lot of what stuff?
basically, so I read an article on Wall Street Journal. It was essentially like, okay, there was this girl, she was valedictorian, right? The ACT is completely getting rid of in California schools to get into their colleges, like ACT, SAT. So
Okay.
this girl was like valedictorian of her class. You know, she was highly honored. She got into a very top university in California to study chemical engineering. Turns out her school didn't teach math, so she just
Incredible.
didn't. She didn't have like any math classes. So when she went to the university, I think it was the University of California something, either Davis or like Berkeley. She had no math skills going into chemical engineering. And then she was like, I'm valedictorian and I'm basically like almost failing. Like I'm struggling. This is hard. What's happening? Like
Do you
Yeah,
recall
I'm
her
not
name?
prepared.
School doesn't
I don't
teach
recall her
math.
name. No, I don't, unfortunately. This was a while back. This was
Okay.
when I was like in last year in class talking about testing, testing bias and how to tell if a test is actually good and why getting rid of the SAT and saying it's testing bias is actually really stupid and it's completely wrong. In fact, it's a lie. Testing bias about the ACT is actually just a lie. It's non-existent. Because what people say testing bias is very different.
From what it actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like what testing bias means is like the test doesn't test the knowledge it's supposed to test. And what people were saying is, hey, like minorities are scoring much worse on this test than white people and Asians, ergo there's a testing bias. It favors white and Asian people. That's not what testing bias is at all. And in fact, the test is geared towards so that that doesn't happen at all. It's just that they weren't good enough. Essentially, they weren't actively good enough. Whether it's their school or whatever, the test is not at fault for their score. Is essentially what it is.
I feel like
It's
this is another
outside
story
factors.
of just misinterpreting metrics, right?
Yeah, but that was the argument for getting rid of it, and they completely got all of it wrong. Like there's an entire field like quantitative psychology, that the psychometrics, that entire field of math psychologists is dedicated, hired from Kaplan and all these other things to make sure, and Pearson to make sure that that test is unbiased and actually tests exactly what they say it tests. It is very well done in that regard.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's useful, that's another story, but it does test what it's supposed to be testing.
Yeah,
And that's the key.
Yeah.
and it's likely that the bias is not of the test, but of
Yeah, it does.
not necessarily bias even, but a difference in K through 12 education quality in different regions.
Or just,
Because the
people.
quality of education, everyone pretty much will admit that the quality of education varies from school
Dramatically.
to school dramatically.
Or even people taking advantage of it, like going to school, seeing who is studying and who isn't, who's interested in playing basketball a lot and hanging around and not going to class and skipping versus who doesn't.
Yeah,
And they could be just self-biasing themselves out.
who would
That
skip
can't
class.
be not taken into account. Like, you can't just throw that out the window. That's part of that's a variable to take into account, along with everything else.
Yeah, and why do they skip class?
Yeah, another reason. Why do they? I don't know.
And all these
Lot of
factors
questions.
I'm
coincide.
definitely
to
not
each
an
other.
expert on this.
Yeah.
Could it coincide with the fact that their school sucks and they don't get anything out of it? Maybe that's why they're skipping class.
I mean,
Or maybe they have parents that don't give a fuck and don't
That's
encourage
another
them to
reason.
go to class.
Because
or maybe
we
it's
had
a combination of multiple factors, which is probably, the most likely explanation, because very few
Yeah,
things on this planet are due to one factor alone.
because we had a good school growing up, so that really takes away from that one point. So it's just a multitude of all sorts of things, but that doesn't fit a nice narrative of it's racism, it's this, it's these people taking advantage of these people. It's much harder to make a story when it's a huge, like, 10 or 20 different variables all coming together and culminating in it, and there's no, like, easy fix.
And it gets all confusing. It's not easy to absorb, so then people stop paying attention to it.
But my
That's why
wage gap.
That's why people
The
misinterpret
pink
every
tax.
scientific paper. It's just reading what the public thinks of a scientific paper versus what it actually is mind-boggling.
I bet you they didn't read it. I've read some scientific papers that I'd like tear my eyes out trying to read again.
Yeah,
I bet you they didn't read
they're
them.
not fun. They're definitely not fun.
Unless you're into
mean,
that
that's
sort
like-
of thing.
No, even if you're into it, that's what I'm doing right now for my job. It's not fun.
On that note, I think we're about to hit time. But thanks for joining us, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful whatever time of day it is, and the rest of your day as well, or whatever.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next week.
Go die in a hole.